Testing? 1, 2, 3. All right, chat. Ooh, weird. Hold on. This is all wonky. The camera is wonky. Hold on, chat. Better? Does it feel tilted to you? Is it just me? Is that better? I don't know. Okay. So welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in Boston. Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if you guys have a question or concern, please go see a licensed professional. So we have something pretty cool. Oh, you know, I figured out what it is. It's the table. Okay, we'll fix it later. We've got, sorry for the late start. So we've got something a little bit different today. So at Healthy Gamer, we are, we've sort of done some work with parents before, but we're actually relaunching our parent program. So this is a family support program that we have at Healthy Gamer where we try to help parents connect with their kids and sort of help them develop healthy habits around gaming and technology use. I know it's kind of weird to say that we work with parents because most of our audience is gamers, but what we've really discovered is that helping almost training parents and like learning how to communicate with gamers is like really, really beneficial to both sides of the relationship. It's also really bizarre because we have like people like follow us in terms of like content watching and things like that. Like parents will follow us and their kids will follow us. So what we really try to do is you know, help parents support their kids. We try to teach them our philosophy at HG, which is to, you know, meet people where they're at and like instead of like saying like, oh, screw you, stop playing video games. It's about trying to understand like why is it that you're playing games, like what's important to you in life, like how do we help you become a healthy gamer. So in that vein, we're actually going to have an interview today, which we haven't done in a few days. So I'm really looking forward to doing an interview, but it's going to be with a parent. So we're going to hear a parent's perspective and kind of their experience with their child. Because, you know, sometimes when we talk to gamers, we'll hear like their perspective on their parents, and sometimes it's not always like the best perspective, right? It's like they're kind of complaining about their parents, or their parents have done things that are not necessarily the best. Or sometimes they're actually very protective of their parents, and it's me who's sort of trying to get them to realize that maybe their parent didn't do a perfect job, and that's okay. No parent is perfect. And it's in acknowledging our shortcomings that we hope to grow. So if people are interested, our parent program launches actually in 6 days. And I think there's a link somewhere. Let me see. And we're going to hop onto Zoom. So let me just figure out where this is. Yeah, we're going to do Zoom chat. Have you all heard of this thing? It's called Zoom. Okay, it looks like this still works pretty well. It's kind of like Skype. It's kind of like Skype. Yeah, okay, so if you guys want a link to the parent program, here it is. Oh, Google link. Okay. All right, great. So it looks like we're not using Zoom chat. We're using Google. Let me figure out. No. There we go. Okay. So we are waiting. We are going to do the Google Meet. We are meeting on Google. Have you been there? It is very nice. They're a very nice cafe. Have you been? All right. So I think. Oh, And I understand we have a raid from Patrick Rothfuss. Welcome, Patrick. Hope you're doing well, buddy. We're big fans over here at Healthy Gamer. Love the work that you do. And thanks for joining us. For people who are new to our community, hold on a second. Let me see. Okay. Hello? Testing.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, this is Layla.
Hey, Layla. Thank you so much for coming. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
All right, so Patrick, thanks for joining us. People from Patrick's community, welcome. So Layla, let me go ahead and figure out how to get this. Do you have video or no?
I do have a video. Do I need to turn it on, or is it okay if just be off?
So so here's our approach. So just to give you a little bit of orienting, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do today. You don't have to answer any questions that you don't feel comfortable answering. You do not have to show your face if you don't want to. At the same time, I certainly benefit a lot from seeing people's faces, and I think the audience does as well, because sometimes, if we're just communicating by voice, like facial expressions can mean a lot. But at the same time, for privacy concerns and things like that, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you absolutely do not have to.
Thank you. So I would prefer to not have a video.
Okay, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
So, and are you okay with sort of the rest of it? Like, you feel okay, if I ask you anything that you don't feel comfortable answering, you're kind of okay saying that, hey, I don't want to answer that?
Yeah, if I don't feel comfortable, I'll let you know.
Perfect.
So is it just for me, or someone else also there and they can hear us, or what?
Yeah, was that not clear to you? So we are streaming this.
No, whoever sent me that email and texted me, just it seems that I just have an appointment, not with other people. It seems to me, but could you please explain?
Yeah, so let's maybe pause, because this is something that's very, very important to understand. Yeah. So what we try to do here at Healthy Gamer is have conversations with individual people, but we stream those conversations on the internet. And so if you were not kind of aware of that, I think maybe what we should do is pause, because this is being streamed live. And so it, I don't want to, I would almost say if that's not what you understood, I don't think it's even appropriate to ask you, are you okay with that? Because I want you to make that decision with a clear head. Does that make sense?
I think I'm okay. I just we don't need to name our kids, or just answer the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
let's do it.
Okay, yeah. So the other thing about, like I said earlier, privacy is very important to us. So if you don't want to use your full name, if you don't want to use your kid's name, if you don't want to it's not, you don't have to share anything. In fact, we wouldn't recommend that you do that.
Okay. Sounds good.
You sure about that?
Yes, I am. Positive.
Okay, so Layla, then why don't you tell me a little bit about, so just the last thing to clarify with you, because I'm not sure exactly what you understood. So while I am a psychiatrist, I don't deliver medical advice over the internet. So I won't be diagnosing you with anything. I won't be diagnosing your kid with anything. And I'm not actually your doctor. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Okay, so then let me just share with you a little bit about, is it okay if I kind of share with you a little bit about why we do stream this on the internet?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
So I think what's going on in society right now is that there's a disconnect between parents and their children. So what we try to do at Healthy Gamer is we have interviews oftentimes with, people like your kids, where they share their perspective and their experience of growing up in this world, their relationship with their parents. Oftentimes we've found that parents who watch kind of even not, obviously it's not their kid, but watching someone who could be their kid talk about their experience of life is very educational for the parents. and helps them better understand their own children and how to communicate with them and what could be going on with their kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now what we're trying to do is actually flip it around, because what we've realized at Healthy Gamer is that, so most of our audience, we reach somewhere, I don't know, anywhere between like 1 million and 20 million people a month. What we've realized is that like your kids, or like the generation of your children, could probably benefit from understanding their parents' perspective. And so the reason that we've asked you to come today is to share your experience of, you know, what your situation with your kid is like. And so that hopefully all of the kids out there who are listening will learn something about what a parent goes through. And we hope that by the kids understanding what the parents go through, that it'll improve their relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, what your situation is, and maybe if there's anything I can help you with.
Yeah. So, well, I have a 14 years old son who is, recently, so, I mean, since the pandemic, he's been, playing a lot on the computer, Xbox, and using his phone a lot. Before then, we had a time for phone and everything, but since the pandemic happened, then they were staying home, all kids, and they didn't have much fun, so we just kind of break our rule, and
Sure.
now it becomes like more and like kind of addiction. So,
Okay.
and it definitely, I mean, it affects our relationship, and I'm very concerned about his school and his academic.
Sure. So let me ask you, how is it that, what changes have you noticed in your son?
Well, using a lot. I mean, spending a lot of time with his with his phone and Xbox and computers.
What
Screen.
when you
Yeah.
say a lot, what does a lot mean?
Well, I mean, so of course now school started, so he cannot use his phone as much as he used to, but after school, like let's say from 6 to 10:30, he used his phone, and and all others like Xbox.
So we're talking about like 4 to 4.5 hours per day.
Yes, and then weekends all day long, he's on his phone.
What is he doing on his phone?
Well, I mean, talking to his friends, Snapchat, TikTok, stuff like that.
Okay. And when you say he talks to his friends, he's like texting with his friends, or he's on like voice calls
Texting,
with them?
no phone, like phone calls.
Okay. And this is a problem in your eyes?
Of course.
I know. Sometimes I ask silly questions. It's just to kind of confirm. So what do you think is the problem here?
Well, we don't spend time together. He doesn't do like exercising, doing other things. It's just using phone all day long.
Okay. And what would you think what would you like him to do? Like what would a healthy relationship with technology look like in your mind?
Well, like let's say kind of activity, like going, like walking or hiking or playing outside, even either with his friends or family, doing chores, doing something. It could be like drawing. It could be some other things, some other, like doing some art or doing whatever, anything except using his phone and
Yeah,
it's
that's what I'm hearing, right?
anything,
So
like
you
going
don't really
gardening, I
care
don't
as long
know,
as it's something
shoveling,
besides a phone and an
cleaning
Xbox.
outside, cleaning someone's house. But
Sure.
yeah.
And what happens when you try to how do you try to get him to do other things? Like what does that look like?
Could you
Like how
please
do you get
explain?
him to try to do chores or exercise?
Oh, how? I mean, I have to end up fighting sometimes,
So tell
or turn off the internet, or turn off, because I have access to his Xbox computer, and I can turn off the internet, pause it. But I really, for 14 years old, I don't want to get to that point, and I don't want any conflict, any fighting. I want him to kind of understand, and I tried a lot of
okay.
things.
So tell
And
me what you've
so,
tried.
well, like, I mean, give him like, okay, after you do this, I'll give you, more time. I'll give you this. Uh, like some kind of prize, not really, prize, but something that motivate him. But
And what do you
it
try to
works just
motivate him with?
for short terms, and then he kind of gave up, and then he just doesn't want to do that.
So Layla, it sounds like here's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So your son maybe had healthier habits. The kind of pandemic hit, things
Mm-hmm.
got way worse, and
Yeah.
now you genuinely recognize that it's starting to really become a problem, and you're doing
Mm-hmm.
your best to respect his preferences.
Mm-hmm.
You try really hard to help him understand. You try really hard not to fight, not to punish. You don't want to just be
Mm-hmm.
like a dictator in the house. You're not just
Yeah.
going to unplug the internet, and you're kind of doing your level best to not resort to those severe punishments,
Mm-hmm.
but that something is kind of getting lost in communication, and sometimes you're almost forced into that position.
Yeah.
Is that pretty fair?
Yes.
What is that like for you to be forced into that position?
Force him to do, like, you mean by force him,
Yeah,
or
well, no, I mean, I was kind of wondering, like, so here, what I'm sort of envisioning is that you're a mom who loves your son, and
yeah.
he's doing something that's unhealthy for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of noticing that it must be like really hard for you to be put into this situation where it's like either he ruins his life or you're the bad guy, right? There's like, it almost feels like a lose-lose situation to me.
Well, no, I do that, but I do kind of, turn off, like, I mean, pause his phone, his, if I notice that he really needs, but sometimes he by like late, but he does it. He does whatever he needs to.
Okay.
Maybe a lot of reminds I have to
Okay.
do, but I want to kind of be like, I want him to understand, and I want him to manage his time. I don't want I the thing I want for him is like he understand that he needs to manage his time, and I don't want to be on top of him always,
Okay.
kind of like a policing him. No.
Yeah, sure. So how do you get your child to manage their own time? How does that happen?
Well, so since he was a kid, I like kind of give him like a time for doing his, things. Like, for example, if he wants something, I said, okay, you have to do this between this and this time, and then you will get that. So it was okay until sometimes, back and forth, fighting, not fighting, like, arguing. And since he turns to the teenage, it gets a little bit conflict.
Yeah, so can you help me understand like almost what a conversation looks like? Like what'll you say first? When will you say it? What'll you say next? And then how do things kind of end up in a fight?
Well, I try to say it very nicely, and then ask him
So
a
what would
couple
you
of
say?
times, several times, look, please do, for example, do your homework, and then you have this time to do it, and then remind
Okay.
him several times. And if he doesn't do that, then I started to do, like, taking his phone, or other, like, computers or whatever, Xbox he plays.
So yeah, so let's kind of tunnel into that. And by the way, Layla,
Mhm.
are you feeling okay with the conversation? Do you feel okay kind of continuing?
Yep.
Okay. This is really helpful for me, and I really hope will, because I think what you're describing is something a lot of parents struggle with, a lot of kids
Mm-hmm.
struggle with, right?
Yep.
So I'm kind of curious, when you say, please do your homework, what do you understand? When you say, please do something. So if Layla, I were to say like, hey, Layla, please give me a call tomorrow. I mean, is that something that you think is sort of like a request or an order or a favor, or what does that mean?
This is kind of request.
It's a request, right? So like
Yeah.
requests can be denied, right?
It depends. So when it depends who requests that. So if
Sure.
it's, I mean, it depends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
of
like
course.
when you say
If
please,
it's between parents, if it's between parents and kids, of course, it's going to be most of the time denied.
okay, so like, but what I'm kind of saying is when you ask your son to do something, I'm
Mhm.
curious, like in your mind, does he have to do it or he's allowed to refuse?
No, he has to do it.
Okay, and so what I'm hearing is that you're giving him an order, but you're phrasing it like a request.
Well, it's both, but it's still it's order. Yeah, he needs to do that, but I don't want to like do it. I mean, like saying the way that we say it's different.
Yeah,
It's different. Yeah.
and Layla, I think this could be part of the problem, right? Because what I'm hearing is that you say something and you don't want to order him,
Mm-hmm.
but you're kind of ordering him.
So you think it shouldn't be? Which way should it be? It should be request or it should be order or both? Or what do you think?
I think whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is should be consistent, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if in your mind it's an order, it should be
Mm-hmm.
clearly communicated as an order. And if in
Uh-huh.
your mind it is a request, it should be clearly communicated as a request. Because here's the thing. So like if my
Yeah.
so I used to be addicted to video games, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom told me the same thing that you did,
Yeah.
right? And so she would say, please do this. And like when someone asks me to please do something, in my mind, it's sort of like, I don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Totally. Yes. You're
And
right.
then she would come in an hour later and she would be like, she would ask me a question. Have you done your
Mhm.
homework yet? Do you ask that to your son?
No, for homework, I said you have to do it.
I see. So when you said you remind him several times, what does that conversation look like? So you say, "Hey, please do your homework," right? That's
No,
the
no, I
first
don't
thing.
say please do. No, no, for homework, I don't say please do your homework. I said
I see.
you need to get off and get on for your homework.
Okay,
There is yeah.
let's kind of dig into this a little bit more because that's really useful to hear, Layla. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So
Yeah.
like let's say like when is this conversation happening? Is this like a weekday conversation or like weekend conversation?
Weekday.
Okay, so weekday, like what time does he get home?
We have 5:36.
Okay, and what time does your first interaction with your child happen?
Well, 7, let's say.
Okay, so 7 p.m. rolls around, and who initiates the conversation?
I do.
Okay, and what do you say? Awesome, you're doing great, Layla, by the way. We're going to get to the
So
bottom of this, okay?
I said you need to do your homework
Okay, and
before
what?
this time. For example, before 10.
Fantastic. You need to do homework before 10.
Yeah.
And how does he respond?
Well, it he doesn't do right away, but he does it.
Okay, and are you okay with that?
Yes, as long as he does it, I'm
Cool.
fine.
So what does that communication look like? So you say, "Hey, you need to do your homework before 10."
Yeah,
And then when
that one that works. My problem is it's about his screen time, honestly.
Okay, so now I'm going to point
Even though I don't care that let's not say that. I do care actually. He does his homework and his school, but still he is on his phone a lot. So
Okay.
I want him to minimize that.
Okay. I'm with you 100%, but let's try to look at that from kind of let's not steer away from the homework yet. Is it okay if I just kind of because I want to get that kind of pinned down because I want to
Sure.
understand your interaction there. So you come in at 7, 8, you say you have to do your homework before 10. When does he end up doing his homework?
He's always like, in the last minute.
Sure. So like he starts at
Close to
9 maybe?
10. Yeah.
Okay, so he starts at 9 and he finishes it by 10. So you've given him an order and do you talk to him at all between 7 and 9 or you're kind of like he's going to do it?
A couple of reminder, but I know that he does it.
So a couple of reminders, help me understand what a reminder actually sounds like.
Like, did you finish? Did you do it? Something.
And what does he say?
He said, I'll do it.
He says, I'll do it. Okay, so you remind him maybe at 8:30, let's say?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, and he says, I'll do it, and then he ends up doing it. And then is there any discussion afterward? Like what happens at 10 p.m.? Do you guys talk about it?
Well, just checking with him. Did you do it? And then check it. And then if he did it, so then he's all set.
Okay.
But the other things, then he does it because he wants to get to the screen. He wants to get under the screen and then play for late time and then go to bed late. So my thing is that mostly that one. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second. So when he does his homework and you check it and he does it, do you say anything after that?
Like what?
Like good job.
Of course.
I know it's kind of a weird question, but are you sure you say that?
No. It's not weird. But I didn't know what you mean exactly by asking that. Yes.
Okay. And how does he respond to that?
Well, 14 years old doesn't respond, if you say good job or thank you, they are like, yeah. It's like
yeah, right. He doesn't really know how to respond to that.
No.
Do you get the sense how do you feel when he's done his homework?
Well, although he doesn't say anything, but I feel like he's also happy to doing that on time. I mean, by that time, and then he's free. I can feel it that he feels that he's free to go.
Okay, so he's happy that he's done with his chores.
Yeah.
And that he has followed your orders. So he's happy to be free of the homework, and even arguably
and then
free
he's
of
on
you.
his own time, and then he can do being on his phone or being on Xbox or playing games, whatever.
So Layla, when he does his homework by 10 p.m., how do you feel emotionally?
Well, of course, I feel I feel good about it.
Are you sure about that?
He did it. Yes.
Are you sure you feel good that he does his homework?
Yes. Why shouldn't I?
Are there any other feelings there?
I honestly, I don't know what do you mean by that.
Yeah, so I know it's really confusing, right? Yeah. So this is going to be so I'm going to toss something. And you let me know, right, if this makes sense to you or not. But what I'm sort of hearing is that you can't really be upset that he did his homework. But in the back of your mind, you're not really happy because the only reason he's doing his homework is to get to the screen time. Right? And what I'm almost hearing from you is that you're almost even though he did what he was supposed to do, he's not doing it for the right reasons. And you can't really be happy if he's just complying with your orders because he's not understanding. He's not doing it for the right reason. He's just complying with your orders to get you off of his back so that he can go back to the addiction. And how can any parent be happy when they're, the kid is just sitting there waiting. Okay, mom, are we done yet? Can I get back to it? Can I get back to it now? Okay, great. How can a mom truly be happy in that situation?
That's true.
What do you think? Is that because it's interesting because you're even doing this thing where I'll ask you about the homework and then you kind of will change the topic and you'll be like, I just don't want him to use the screen. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So are you actually satisfied? I know that he did what he was supposed to do, so technically you can't be upset with him. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was a part of you that was still uneasy about the way that you had to force him to do it. And that you can't really be happy about the way things ended up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, one part, yes, it's, it's right, and the other part still he's getting on the screen, which I don't like it. That's true.
Yeah. And so how so when you dislike his screen usage,
Hmm.
does that get communicated to him in any way? Either in tone or even facial expression or like through words?
May I ask one more time? I mean,
Yeah.
tell me your question, please.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you're kind of happy that he did his work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then you're also kind of like unhappy that he's like missing the bigger point,
Mm-hmm.
which is that the only reason he's doing the work is to like feed his addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're kind of unhappy with that, right?
Yes.
And so, when people communicate with each other, sometimes the emotions that we feel
Mm-hmm.
will get communicated to your son, for example. So does that happiness does the unhappiness that you feel get communicated to him in any way?
Yes, because then after he does his homework, then I tell him, hey, you don't have much time to play a lot. You have just this time to get, I mean, you need to get off, early because you need to go to bed.
And how does he?
So, yeah, I mean, not most of the time, but uh, he does it, but sometimes I need, I end up to pause his screen.
Okay, so sometimes he'll like listen to that order as
Yeah,
well,
sometimes, yeah.
and other times he doesn't listen to the order.
And I have to
So
take an action.
you're forced into like setting a
Hmm.
hard boundary.
Yes.
Okay. And how does how does that communication happen, and how does he respond to that?
Well, he said okay, 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 but it's not like he say he doesn't really mean that.
Of course.
And yeah, and then I have to take an action.
What is
So
taking an action? What is that like? Paint me a picture. If I was like in your house, and
yeah,
what would I
I have to
see?
pause. Yeah, I have
What
to
does pause
pause.
mean?
Pause. He's from my phone. I can pause. In any devices that I have on the internet, so I can pause it.
So you use your phone and you just like pause the internet?
Pause the Yes, not pause
So
the internet. Pause the device. I can pause the device.
so you can pause his Xbox, his PC,
Yeah,
his phone from your
yeah,
phone?
yeah.
And do you tell him you're doing that, or do you just do it?
Yes, before I do it, yes, I said for example, you have 10 minutes, and if you don't get off, I'm gonna pause it.
Okay.
He
And
gets like
how
very upset. He gets very, sometimes he asks me, can I have like 2 more minutes to, I mean, but no, but I do it
and when
anyway.
you say that was great. So he says, "Can I have
No,
2 more minutes?"
no, I said no. And he gets really upset. And then sometimes I scream, but I don't care.
He screams or you scream?
No, he screams sometimes that I need to finish this. And I said no. And then gets back to whatever, go to bed.
So he screams. He says, "I need to finish it," and then do you
Yeah.
yell back, or do you just like, "Sorry, game
No,
over"?
I just make him quiet. Just be quiet, go to your bed. Tomorrow is another day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you understand that interaction? Like, help me understand how do you feel about that dynamic?
About, I mean, doing that with him.
Sure.
So he needs to understand. I mean, of course, I feel bad for him, but he needs to understand that I mean, the time managing, he needs to understand that.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense to me. So like you wish it was different. It's not that like you don't want to upset
Yeah.
your son, but at the end of the day, like as his parent, it is like your responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
help him understand the things that he needs to understand, right?
Yeah.
So if that means a little bit of tough love, like that's okay. Like it's a necessary
Yeah.
evil. Is that fair
Exactly.
to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a second, Layla. And I don't blame you at all, by the way. Are you feeling okay? Like, do you feel like I'm trying to like make you sound bad or painting you out to be a bad parent or anything like that?
No, but I would like to hear more about how we can help kids.
Absolutely. So
How,
we're just
yeah,
getting there. Yeah. So
yes.
I think the first thing is to kind of map out what your interactions are like.
Hmm.
And then try to look at, so let me give you a little bit of roadmap. So we want to map out like what the individual interactions are like. And once we understand what your interactions are like, we can start to understand how people feel after those interactions. And then we can start to change our interactions to try to move in a different direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you say he needs to understand, right, Layla?
Yes.
How do people understand things? What is the process through which we gain understanding?
Well, by telling them.
By telling them?
And
So like let's
yeah,
think
by
about,
telling them and by, making rules for them, uh,
so like let's
explain
like,
to them.
okay, explain, making rules. So let's kind of think about that, okay?
Mhm.
So if I want to learn mathematics, how do I learn mathematics?
But so by uh, doing your homework, doing classwork, follow your teacher. That's how you learn.
And if I'm not understanding in mathematics, what is the way? So let's say like I'm a math teacher and I have a
Mhm.
student and I give a lecture for like an hour and then I give the homework and then the kid can't do the homework. What should I do next as the teacher?
So ask why he doesn't understand or she doesn't understand, which way, I mean, what part he or she doesn't understand. Explain it more.
Okay, so do you ask your son
Hmm.
why he spends so much time on the screen?
Yes, I did. And he said that there is nothing to do, nothing else to do except that.
Okay, and then what do you think about that?
So it's not right. And I asked him, I put him for a basketball class, tennis class, all the sports class, most of the sport classes, and he does it, he like it. But at the end, still he wants to be on his phone.
Okay, so I'm a little
Because
bit confused because he saes there's nothing to do,
mhm.
and then you say
Like, for
that's not
example, I
right.
said, yeah, that's not right. I said, yeah, you can do chores at home, like cleaning your room, cleaning house, you know, out is, I mean, playing with your friends outside, doing exercising, stuff like that. But he's not motivated for that.
Okay, why isn't he
Yeah.
motivated for that?
Why? What?
Why isn't he motivated to do the things that you tell him to do?
Well, because he thinks, yeah, he enjoys a lot on his phone. Because,
How do you come to that conclusion?
like, what do you mean by that? How do I
So
come?
how do you know why what you so you have an assumption that
Yeah.
he is not motivated to do things like basketball even though he enjoys them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like so it sounds like when I ask you why he's like to explain his motivation, it sounds
Mm-hmm.
to me like you're making an assumption about his motivation, which is that he just likes the phone more.
No, because I see him that as soon as he finished that, until he's with basketball, whatever sports,
Yeah.
as soon as he finishes it, he wants to get to his phone. I
Yep.
see him, he wants to get it.
Okay, so now, Layla, I'll give you kind of like some information. Okay, so you let me know what you think about that. So just like a math, if a math student is not learning math, I think the right way to get them to understand is as a
Mm-hmm.
teacher, don't just teach it again. Just like you said, you have to ask them like what part is confusing for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So oddly enough, like the right move for a teacher in that situation is not to tell the student that they're wrong. not to explain it again, but to try to understand the student's understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so oddly enough, what I'm kind of hearing is that you'll ask, hey, why do you like the game? But then as soon as he gives you an answer, what I'm noticing you're doing is like you just kind of say that's wrong. And you're not really like understanding his perspective. You're just saying that his perspective is incorrect. Does that make sense?
So let me ask you a question. You mean that when he wants to get back to his phone, I feel like it's wrong, right?
Yep.
So it is kind of wrong because he wants to get to his phone, right?
Sure.
24/7.
So I'm with you there, but
if I don't make him to do something except, being on his phone, then of course. So,
yeah.
and I need to tell him that being on the phone, it's not right. Somehow.
Okay, so let's take
I know
a big.
He needs that. All of us. I as an adult, I'm on my phone also sometimes, not 24/7, but I also I don't say that he shouldn't be on his phone. No, this is not my point. My point is he can be on his phone. He can, go to play Xbox. He can be on a Snapchat, TikTok, whatever. But certain time, not always.
Yeah.
This is my point.
So,
that's it.
Yeah. So let me. I'm going to just toss out words and I'm going to kind of group them. Okay. So what you're describing is like you kind of telling him that this is wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong for saying that, by the way. Okay. So it's wrong. You can order him. You can make him. That's like one camp, right? Like there were right and wrong. It's black and white. You have to do it. That's like one approach. The other approach involves motivation, understanding, asking questions. Do you see how like those two are like different things?
Yes.
So what I'm kind of noticing is that like you can force him to do stuff and he'll do it because you have more power in the relationship. But forcing him to do things is not how you make someone understand, right? Like, I mean, you're a parent.
No, that's true.
Right? So, and this is where like when you ask him a question, I don't really get the sense that I think you need to ask the next question, right? So like, help me understand, like, here's a question that I would ask your son. So it's been my observation that when you actually go to basketball, you seem to enjoy it. And I'll even ask you like, hey, did you have a good time? And that, you do want to do well in school. So like these things seem important to you and you seem to enjoy them. But every time when I try to get you to do something, you resist me a lot. Can you help me understand why you resist me so much? Like, I'm kind of confused because these two things don't line up for me. What do you think about that question?
So I do it. I do the same.
And what does he say? Good job.
Yeah, I do it, but he doesn't answer he doesn't have any answer. He's like, I enjoy it. For example, if I ask, okay, you have a good time in basketball or whatever, and I see you enjoy it, and then you want it also, you like it, but as soon as you get home, I see you on the phone always. And he said, Mom, I play and I enjoy. Now I want to spend time with my friends. That's all he says.
Okay. So what you're saying doesn't really sound like a question to me. Right? It sounds to me like you're making a point. I know it's kind of weird. But like you're kind of, I'm almost getting like the subtitles for what you're saying is you shouldn't be on your phone.
Oh, you mean instead of telling him you shouldn't?
I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that sometimes you remember earlier when we were talking about like making requests versus giving orders?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that when you ask a question, it's not really a question. You're making a point with a question mark at the end. What do you think about that?
Well, I didn't think, that it's like that. I thought this is like a kind of question.
Yeah. So
But you say it's just
and
pointing to it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I'm hearing. And I'm concerned that
Mm-hmm.
that's what he could be hearing too.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I'm hearing is
It could
sometimes
be.
he'll give you answers,
Mm-hmm.
and your response to his answers or his opinions is that's wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm just going to like kind of, I'll say it, right? So if you're in a relationship where you share an opinion with someone and
Mm-hmm.
their response is that's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to want to continue to communicate with that person. Right? My answers are just going to become simple. There's
Mm-hmm.
no like dialogue. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I get it.
Right? So I'm not trying to make you feel like a bad parent. I genuinely don't think you're a bad parent. I think what's happening nowadays is that video
Different
game
conversation can makes a lot of difference. Yeah, I got it.
Yep. And video game addiction
Yes.
requires a sophistication of communication by
Yes.
parents that we didn't need anymore, need in the past. Because there is so much dopamine, there's so much addictive stuff. Like that's the way these apps are designed. That's the way the
Mm-hmm.
games are designed. And so as a parent, we have to have a sophistication of our communication that
Mm-hmm.
counters the addictiveness of devices.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, what I would say, like, if you want some concrete advice, because I get the sense you want that from me, so let's give you some. It's to ask the next question, right? So, and this is the kind of thing where if you don't understand, if you disagree with something or you think that something is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for you to share that opinion, but I would try to understand his perspective, just like a math teacher, right? So if I'm trying to teach someone addition and they say 2 + 2 is 6, and I say that's wrong, 2 + 2 is 4. And I can say that 15 times. But until I ask the student, how are you getting 2 + 2 = 6? Does that make sense? Like you have to understand like how they're getting to the wrong conclusion in the first place. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's really when you can help them understand how 2 + 2 = 4.
Yep.
So, I think you're doing a lot of the right stuff, right? You're asking him like, why is it that you don't, you seem to like basketball, but you want to do Snapchat? And then he says, well, I just like being with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and that could be a big part of it. So this is where one of the things that we've also noticed is that when we work with parents, we help them try to ask lots of questions that they may not think about asking with their kids. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, like maybe he gets bullied at basketball. Do you know if that's the case?
No.
As in, that he doesn't get bullied, or you're not sure?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, because I talk to him a lot.
Okay,
and he
that
tells
sounds
me everything. The good things about my son is he tells me everything. That's very good. If he gets upset, I mean, even if he doesn't talk, I can notice from his face and his attitude. And after I said, is there anything you want to share with me? He start talking, which is great.
Wow, that's awesome. How did you get to the point where your son shares everything with you?
Well, because since the beginning, I talked to him a lot, and I was involved everything with him, and I just talked to him a lot, and I was very friend, and I never punished him, like really punished. Just I want him to be friend with me, not scared of me. So we have this good relationship. At least he tells me everything, which is great.
Yeah, I think that it's clear that you guys have a very good and loving relationship. And at the same
Yes, we do.
time, it also sounds like sometimes, you're pausing his devices and kind of pissing him off. And so I
Yes.
wonder a little bit about how that would affect his communication with you.
Well, the good thing about my son is he gets mad easily, but in a second he turns back to his, normal, which is
Okay.
great.
Yeah,
So
that sounds
he
really
gets
healthy.
mad at me, right after he just, become quiet. Very easily, and then he continue, which is good.
Yeah. So it sounds like he doesn't hold on to the anger and he doesn't start to resent
No.
you, and that you guys have a very solid foundation of
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
So this is what I'd say, Layla. I think like this is where, what I would really do is sit down with your son and
Mm-hmm.
ask him questions like, I don't know, maybe you've done this. Do you want me to force you to do your homework? Have you ever asked him that?
No, I haven't.
What do you think would happen if you did ask him that?
Well, I never think about it.
Yeah, right? So like it's kind of a different question, right? Like what do you think about that
Yeah.
question?
So what was your question? You said what do I think he thinks?
No, what do you think about the question? Do you want me
Oh,
to force you to do your homework? How do you feel about that question? Is that like
well,
you think it's a good?
I mean, this is a good question. This is great. But the thing is, um, I don't know what he's gonna answer. That's the thing.
Yep.
Or does
That's
he have any answer for that?
yeah. Here's the thing, Layla. The questions you need to be asking your son are the ones that you don't know how he's going to answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what you should be asking him, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
fundamental disconnect between his view of things and your view of things.
Yes.
And in order to get on the same page with your kid, you can try to drag him over to your side as much as you want to, which is what I think you've been doing. That's what most parents do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think this is the point where he's not 12 anymore. He's not 10. He's 14. He's starting to form his own opinions. He's starting to have his own beliefs,
Yes.
right? And so it's really good that you guys have this really solid foundation. And so I think really like asking him questions that you kind of don't know the answer to, because you're a mother who knows everything about your son. You can tell, right?
Yes.
So now this is the point where he's going to start to be a little bit more closed off because he's a 14-year-old boy, right? He's like probably going through puberty and stuff. So I'm sure
Yes.
that, there are going to be like maybe thoughts or feelings that he has that maybe he's not sharing with his mom, because that's what 14-year-old boys do when they go through puberty.
Yeah.
You with me
Yes.
there?
Yes.
And so like this is the time where it's time to start changing the way that you communicate with him
Yes.
and really trying to understand his perspective. So other things, other like suggestions for conversations are just asking him, how important is school to you? Do you want to do well in school?
Yeah.
What do you think about those questions?
That's great. Yeah.
Right? So
We
do you
should
know,
have-
have you
yeah.
talked to him about that?
Yes, I did. Yes, and he said, "What do you think, Mom?" Of course, it is. Yeah, he said, "Of course, it is. It is important."
And then what do you
I'm
say
not
next?
dumb. I'm not. These kids. What type of words they do? I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. Stuff like that they use. But you really don't know what's going on in their brain. That's the
Yep.
thing.
So when he says, of course it's important, what do you say next?
I said, okay, if it's important, then how come that you don't do this?
No. See, that's an accusation, Layla. You're losing him
Oh.
right at that moment. You see that? If it's important, why don't you, that you're losing him right there. Does that make sense?
Yes. So instead, I have to say, oh, then you should do this.
No. Here's the thing.
Okay.
Okay, here's the one thing you got to do, Layla. You're doing fantastic. You just got to change one thing. You shouldn't say anything after that. You should ask another question.
Oh.
Okay. Right? Because he says, of course it's important. And then this is going to be kind of weird, right? And then you ask him, help me understand why. Why is school important to you?
Oh.
Right? Because here's the thing. In his mind, there is a conflict. School is important, and I want to play the video game. And so this is what happens with teenagers, is the more you push him, the more he's going to push back. And this is the thing, right? Because like you ask him like, hey, is school important to you? He says yes, and then you're like, yay, we win, right? Layla, he understands what he's supposed to understand. He's giving you the right answer. And so then in your mind, you're like, everyone charge, let's attack. Then why don't you do this? Like, let's go. Like, change. Like, you gave me an inch of ground, so I'm going to go all in. You kind of get what I'm saying? Why don't you, then you're like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And when you ask the question, like like, for example, we're going to try this, okay, Layla? So it's going to maybe just be ready for it. If I ask you the question, Layla, why don't you try to understand your son better? If I ask you that question, how does it make you feel?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you're right.
Let's articulate it, right? Because we can't see your face right now. And I'm sure if we could see your face, we'd be able to see what your answer is. How does that make you feel?
So of course, it's like kind of forcing.
Yeah. Right? And so in a weird way, like, does that inspire you to act? Do you feel like I'm on your team? Do you feel like we're on the same team here?
No.
Right? And so, and this is the tricky thing about this, Layla, is like, you're not wrong at all. In fact, you're 100% right. And this is like where the sophistication of communication comes in, because you're right that, like, spending like 4 hours a day on Snapchat is like not good for your kid. You know it's not good for your kid. He knows it's not good for him. He understands, like, you don't think your kid understands that playing video games for 10 hours a day on the weekend is like a waste of his time?
Yeah,
like, he gets that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
On some level, he gets it.
Yes.
And the problem is, like, he's addicted. So, like, even like sometimes he may not be addicted. I'm kind of using that simply, but even like people who are addicted, like, the whole point is that they can't stop. They know it's bad, but they can't stop.
Yes.
Like, your son understands that, like, he understands how, like, relationships and dating and stuff works. He understands that if he spends 10 hours a day on the weekends, like, on his phone, instead of playing basketball and exercising, like, it's going to be hard for him to, like, date. Like, he's not an idiot. You with me?
Yes.
And the problem, though, is that something is going on that has him retreating or escaping to the device. And even to the point where he sort of recognizes, and I think this is part of the reason that y'all have such a good relationship, because a lot of things that you do to him, like, would piss a lot of kids off, right? And he gets pissed off, but he doesn't hold on to it. Why doesn't he hold on to it? Because he recognizes on some level that, first of all, you love him. And secondly, like, what you're forcing him to do is actually for his benefit. And I suspect he understands that. What do you think?
No, he understands that.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's why y'all's relationship is as good as it is. And I think really all you need to do is ask like one or two more questions, because here's the cool thing. Like, I is it okay if I keep talking, or you want to jump in, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here's sequence number one. Help me understand, like, why do you play video games? I thought you liked basketball. And he's like, yeah. Or let's talk about grades. So you say, is school important? He says yes. And then, like, option one is like, then why don't you ... right? And then he feels kind of attacked. He's like, he kind of feels ashamed because you're right? Like, you're clearly making a good point. Like, he can't really argue against it. And so he kind of shuts down and gives you a very short response. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. So let's, like, look at option number two, right? Which is like, okay, is school important to you? He says yes. And then you can say, help me understand why school is important to you. What about school is important to you? And as you get him to articulate, he says, well, school is important to me because, like, I want to go to a good college. And then it's like another question, like, why is going to a good college important to you? Like, why do you want to go to college? As you get him to articulate and bring out of him, what he really cares about and what he values in life, then you're setting yourself up. And then you kind of, like, the next, the third or fourth or fifth question that you ask him is like, so I'm a little bit confused because you tell me that you want to go to college because you want to be intellectually challenged and that you want to make a difference in the world. And I'm kind of confused because, like, on a day-to-day basis, your actions are not really, like, aligned with that. So as a parent, I don't know what to do. I don't know, because on the one hand, I want to support you in all of these goals, which I think are the right goals. But every time, and even, I mean, I know you, right? And we're talking about this, so I'd like to support you in these things. I'd like to help you get into a good college. But when I try to do that, like, you seem to fight me. And then I get stuck. What do you think I should do about that? And that's when he'll start to understand. Right? Because you're sort of explaining your situation to him. You're not telling him what's right or wrong. You're almost recruiting him to be on your side. And you're working with him. You're like, hey, son, this is a problem you and I have to solve together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? And I think that's when understanding is going to come.
Yes. I understand. You are right.
Okay, so let's just think about that for a second. If you agree with me, how did you understand that at the beginning of the conversation?
Yes.
Okay. I was a little bit confused by that because I was expecting you to say no. So I feel like you've learned something over the course of our conversation. Am I wrong?
You said the beginning of the conversation. You mean this conversation or the beginning of our meeting?
Our beginning of our meeting. Yeah. So like, so you've learned something over the course of our meeting, right? How did you learn? What have you learned? Let's start there.
So I learned that how to communicate better with my son instead of, because my conversation was different than you just told me. I have to start with question and then keep continue until he tells me, instead of I tell him and I force him, he starts to tell me, and I get words from him more than I talk to him, or more than I force and I talk.
Beautifully put, Layla. I think that is the essence of the goal that we set for our parents.
Yeah.
Which is, instead of teaching your kid,
yes,
bring him to a point of understanding. Because as long as you're teaching him, he's on one side and you're on the opposite side.
Yeah. Not in stop lecturing, listening more. I got it.
Yeah. So now let's ask you a question. How did you learn that today?
Oh, I learned, honestly, I learned, especially this, at the end, I learned a lot.
But how? What did we do?
Well, the thing is, our generation was way different than these new generation. So, of course, and the way that we grew, it wasn't like that. And then basically we use kind of our parents' manner and then use it for our kids, which is wrong. Yeah. No. And that's why we need more help and more
So sorry to interrupt. I wouldn't say what you're doing is wrong.
No. I don't mean it's wrong. Like, just the way, different ways.
Yeah. Because I think I would just, that degree of judgment, Layla, concerns me a little bit, because I don't think what you're doing is wrong. I think it's insufficient for the current challenges that of the world.
I agree. Yes.
And so
maybe I explain. Yeah, you explained better. Maybe mine was a little bit confusing. Yes.
No. I that too. I think it's like, this is the point of communication, right? Is we just make sure we're kind of on the same page. And so the other point that I was kind of making is that, like, over the course of this conversation, most of what I've been doing is like asking questions.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's like to illustrate the point of, like, that's where understanding comes from.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's kind of giving you stuff to play with is what I'd call it, right? Like, I'm not saying, like, so for example, when I gave you two options and I'm like, okay, here's communication style 1. Hey, do you think school is important? Yes, then why don't you do it? Here's communication style number 2. Do you think school is important? Yes, tell me why it's important to you, and keep on asking questions. And then I don't tell you which one is right. right? I'm not saying one is good and one is bad. I'm saying, hey, here are two options. Which one do you like more? And that's what, in my experience, that's what brings out the understanding, is that it comes from a place that, like, it sounds like your son and you have a really solid relationship. It sounds like y'all have a really solid foundation. It sounds like he's a smart kid. And so I think, interestingly enough, like, now that he's 14, instead of teaching him stuff, you can actually rely on him to, like, figure things out for himself.
Yeah, just guide him.
Absolutely. Like, give him the questions, not the answers.
Yes.
Because I think he knows the answers. You've baked that into him. You know, he understands, and that's why he doesn't fight you. He doesn't hold on to resentment, because deep down he knows you're right. And helping him, so you don't actually need to teach him anything. He already understands it. You just need to bring his understanding to the surface. And sometimes the way that we communicate with our kids results in, like, denial or defensiveness. And when you say something that causes him to kind of, like, pull back and put up a wall, like, then there's not going to be understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're going to get these, like, because I want to, mom. Like, he's going to get you these really crappy short answers that are, like, hard to engage in, right? He's, like, kind of shutting down the conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I feel like we've covered some decent ground today, and that we're at, like, a decent kind of pausing point or even stopping point. How do you feel?
Well, it was great for me. It was very good conversation, and I learned a lot from that.
Are there any questions that you have remaining? I mean, we still have some time if you want it, but, like, any questions that you have, or any other way that I can potentially be of help to you?
Well, I want to know about this. Is this course can be continuing, or is just one time?
Oh, no. So let me tell you a little bit about our parent program. So here's what we try to do. We have a 12-week course. Okay. So every week there's, like, a lecture. And the topics of the lecture are, first of all, communication and alliance building. So our approach is, first and foremost, how to communicate effectively with your child, and more importantly, how to build what we call an alliance. So I'll just give you an example. Like, once you talk to your kid about why school is important to them, then any kind of limit that you set is not because you think it's good. The reason you're setting these limits are because of what they care about. Hey, you've told me that you want to go to a good college because you want to study, you want to be a doctor one day. So it's because I support your goal that I have to turn off the internet at 10 o'clock. It's not about what I want. It's actually about what you want. And then what happens is, kids are, once you build an alliance with your kid, they're going to be a lot less resistant to the boundaries that you set. So the first thing is communication, understanding, and getting on the same team with your kid. It's not even about restricting to 2 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 5 hours a day or anything like that. That's where everyone wants to start, is like, how do I get my kids to play less video games? We don't start there. We start by communication and alliance building. Then what we do is we teach you how to set good boundaries. So like, it kind of goes into, like, you know, once we understand communication, then how do you set an effective boundary? And that's where we also, like, want to bring your kid into the boundary setting. So you can say, hey, son, here are my goals for you. I want you to exercise, you know, which you've said is important to you. I want you to do chores, and you say you don't want to. So, like, maybe there's some wiggle room there. And you say you want to do well on school, but you also say that, because if you talk to your kid, you'll also discover things like, maybe they are getting bullied at school, or maybe they feel embarrassed about their acne, or maybe they're overweight, or whatever. And that's the reason that he spends so much time online with his friends, because it's hard for him to make friends in real life. So there may be all kinds of stuff going on. It sounds like your son communicates with you, so maybe less important in your case. But for a lot of parents, there are things that they don't know about their kids. So once you understand what drives him towards the video game, it can help you set healthy boundaries, right? Because now you understand, like, why he's resisting, why he's fighting. And so then we try to help people set, you know, very kind of, like, detailed boundary setting plans. So, like, you know, when are you going to play? What are you going to play? What's more important to you? So that's, like, a question that we encourage our parents to ask a lot. You know, I understand that you want to play games with your friends. Like, is it more important to, like, stay up late on Friday nights, or play an hour with them or 2 hours with them every day? Like, which one is more important to you? And so once you sort of start to get, like, what they care about, you can even like, so then they kind of know that you're like sort of trying to support them, right? You understand what they want and you're setting limits, but you're not setting limits that, you know, he has to do his homework. But whether he does his homework an hour every day or all over the weekend, like he can sort of decide that, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So you want to enroll him, make him a part of the process of the limit setting. You know, it's kind of like no taxation without representation. Like you want to give him a voice in the limit setting and the boundaries.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of help you set boundaries and we'll help you troubleshoot boundaries, because at the end of the day, like you know, you can set these boundaries and he's not going to listen to them. And then how do you have conversations with him? How do you set limits on him? How do you draw the line? How do you enforce things? And then also we'll give you like communication tips and sort of like, you know, how to have those conversations. The other big thing that we do in the program is we help decompress your emotions. This is a huge thing. So, you know, these little things like, because in the back of your mind, if you just, you know, Layla, what I get the sense of is that you just don't like him being on his phone. You just don't like it. And that kind of feeling is going to translate in your words and in your tone. And so even when he does everything that you ask him to, you're not going to be happy. And he's going to feel that, which means that when he does what you ask him to, there's not really like a positive emotional reinforcement because you're not truly happy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're going to say good job, but you're going to say it with a little bit of like, it's not going to be like, hey, awesome job. It's going to be like, good job. I know you did it today, but I'm not really happy on the inside. Good job. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So we don't want those emotions to come out with your kid. We want you to bring those emotions into our program and let them come out with the other parents. Work on that, like work on your fear for your child. We haven't really talked about this, but a lot of parents will be like afraid, right? Like what happens when my kid goes to college and I'm not there to force him? What's going to happen? And all of that fear that you hold, all of that frustration that you hold, we want you to process it with us so that when you are talking with your kid, when you're interacting with your kid, you can be calm, you can be collected, you can be focused and disciplined because he's going to feed off of your energy. And so it's a 12-week program where there's lectures, but then we also have y'all meet for 90 minutes a week. In addition to the lecture, you can watch on your time. It's like a video. And we're going to teach you a lot of stuff. So we'll also teach you about like marijuana usage and autism spectrum disorder and like how to understand like what questions to ask your kids and what kind of games your kids like. And there's a lot of like information about video game addiction, how video games affect your child's brain, how they affect their psychology, how they affect their self-esteem, you know, how to have conversations around self-esteem and your kid feeling like they're a failure or whatever. There's a bunch of stuff in there. And then for 90 minutes a week, we're going to give you guys opportunities to practice. So you're going to have a coach and y'all will do things like role play. You're going to practice, you know, not using the word should. Why don't you do this then? You should do this. We're going to give you like literally like a chance to practice those communication skills and support each other as parents. And what we really see is that at the end of 12 weeks, parents who are able to actually commit to the program, their relationship is very different with their kids.
Okay, it sounds great. And then is it something, how much we should pay for? Is it something we have to pay for it or it's what?
Yeah, I actually don't know the price, but it is something that you have to pay for. If you guys, you know, if you're in a position of financial hardship, just kind of let us know. Sometimes we have subsidy funds for people who can't afford it.
Yeah.
Let me actually try to figure out what the price is. I think it may be like, I don't want to misquote. Let me see if I can ask. It should say. Yeah, so the cost is $50 a week.
$50
Yep.
a week. And then how about the one that you said there is someone, I mean, how about the 90 minutes? You said once a week, 90 minutes. What's that?
That's all part of the course. So what we do in our course is there's going to be a lecture that you watch, and then there's 90 minutes of like group work. It's going to be role play, skills practice, processing your own emotions, talking to other parents, troubleshooting communication issues, troubleshooting boundary issues. And like, you got to do both.
Yeah. And then is it that one also covered by this, or it's
Yeah, it's all included. So
okay.
our experience has been that like letting people just watch a series of lectures is not
Uh-huh.
actually like that effective. What's really effective, because you have an individual case with your child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you can
Yes.
watch a lecture, but adapting the principles of the lecture to your individual case requires like actual individual support. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
group that there'll be like somewhere between like 6 and 80 y'all usually.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're going to get like let's say 7 parents together once a week for 90 minutes where you
Yeah.
guys will learn the practical application of the theory that you
Mm-hmm.
learn in the lectures.
Okay.
Any questions that you guys have, any trouble that you run into, we want to support you through all that. Because
Okay.
like, in the lecture, I may say like, ask this question, but then if your kid's answer is like something that's unexpected, then like, what do you do about that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not know. So that's why we have the group every week. So you can come in and you can talk to your
Mm-hmm.
coach and you can say, hey, I asked my kid, do you care about school? And he said no. Now
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And so like we want to help you troubleshoot your individual situation and
Yeah.
practice these skills.
Okay. And also, do they kid also involve at some point, or no? There is no kid
No,
involved.
no. So most of our clients actually, Layla, are your kids. So we've had like 7,000 kids come through our program, but their program is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's
What's the
completely different.
program for them?
So like we work on things like motivation, figuring out what you want to do with your life, things like that. But you have to be
Mm-hmm.
at least 16 to enter that program because kids have to
Oh.
want to change. So,
Oh. Okay.
and that's where we like, most of what we try to help. Because like, here's the thing, your kid wants to do well in life, right? But like, he may be addicted. So even internally, he's like conflicted. So we try to help people work through their internal conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. So, okay. And
10,000.
then
Oh, sorry. We've
if
had 10,000 people come through. My wife is correcting me.
and then, so when I decided to do this course, 12-week course, how I can register, or, do I have to, is there anyone?
We'll send you. So I think you've been talking to someone in our organization. We will send you information.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you so much. It was very nice to meeting you, and pleasure talk to you. I learned a lot, honestly, and I'm sure if I continue, I do learn more.
Yeah. So Layla, I just want to say
Definitely.
thank you so much for coming on. I think the situation that you're in is very representative of what other parents in the program have experienced, which is that you're a good parent, you have a good kid. Video game addiction or technology use or screen use has like really gotten out of hand during the pandemic. And
Mm-hmm.
like the things that used to work for parents just aren't enough anymore. And so, what we really try to do is empower y'all to like navigate this tricky world, this digital world, with a little bit more kind of communication support, a little bit more understanding, and to really like get on the same team with your kid, which oftentimes is not about them understanding. It's just as often about you understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your time
Yeah,
and
thanks a
help.
lot. Take care,
Definitely.
Layla.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, chat. What did y'all think? Right? Good, huh? So this is why we love working with parents. Like I love working with parents. Absolutely love it. Right? I wasn't expecting her to ask all the stuff about the sales pitch. Like I just, I didn't even know if she's going to sign up for the program. As you guys could tell, there was a miscommunication about her kind of coming on and what she was coming on for. I didn't know that she was even interested in the program. But I think like this, it's a prime example of like, parents want to do really well, right? The problem is that like when they're emotionally like so scared for their children, anytime the kid gives them an inch, the parent goes all in, right? It's like the kid is forming a dam. And if there's a crack in the dam, like the water's coming all the way out. And so the parents are going to use any crack they can. Then why don't you do this? Don't you see? Don't you see? And I'm really glad. I hope Layla doesn't feel like, a bad parent. I think sometimes when we point out things that we believe are mistakes, it can make people feel kind of bad. I think she's a fantastic parent. But this is the thing that we've really discovered is that, like, it's just changing your communication. You can change, it changes the relationship entirely by understanding, like, what to say and when to say it. And it's like, because it sounds like she's got a really good relationship with her kid. I don't know that he's telling her everything, by the way, but, maybe. Maybe that's me projecting. But, but I thought it was really fantastic. She was super open-minded, really cares about her kid, has tried a lot of stuff. We can really hear that she kind of gets at her wit's end, right? And, like, ultimately, like, she can't let her kid fail. Like, so she has to pull the plug. And that's not her fault. It's just, she's like, she tries to do it. I do think there's a little bit more about the request versus the order, which I think she's sometimes mixing up. So I think that's probably also creating confusion with her kid because she'll phrase things like a request, but they're actually an order. And then there's, like, not really transparent communication. And then that's going to discourage the kid from, like, participating because you mean one thing and you're saying something else. And so if that's the dynamic of your communication, your kid isn't going to, like, really, they're going to say one thing and they're going to mean something else too. And that's just frustrating for everyone involved because they're going to say, like, yeah, I'll do my chores, but they mean something else because the dynamic of your communication is that we say one thing, we say what we're supposed to, but we really mean something else. We say what we're supposed to, which is, oh, please do your chores, please. But inside it's like, better do your chores, right? And so then your kid is going to play the same damn game. They're going to be like, oh yeah, of course, mom, I'll do my chores. But inside, I'm never going to do my chores. It's the same thing. The kids are going to learn whatever communication style you teach them, right? And so that's why when you start expressing an interest in understanding their viewpoint, something magical happens. They will start expressing an interest in understanding yours. They take their cues from you. Kids take their cues from parents. That's like even mannerisms and stuff. Like my grandmother does this thing where she, like, has this really big sigh every time she sits down. She's like, ah. And I even noticed, like, early on, my older kid spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and she started doing it too. You'd have this, like, 18-month-old that would be like, oh, man, like, what a day, right? And it was like an 18-month-old kid. It was hilarious. So they learn from you. They take their cue from you. It's great. It's neat seeing, like, an 18-year-old with, like, grandmother mannerisms. Yeah, she doesn't do it anymore, unfortunately. Okay. Any questions from y'all? I just have a request from you. It's only undeniable. Yeah. Okay, this is great. This is maybe the first time in our history that you guys don't have questions, which is fantastic. Yeah, the interview just ended, Medium Dawn. You can catch the VOD though, I'm sure. At HealthyGamerGG, how do I become a parent? Okay, that's a whole different stream. Okay, so we're gonna have a talk about the birds and the bees one day. Someone posted on our subreddit, they're like, you should do a talk about sex ed. I think we may have to do that at some point. I actually, like, do a quick bit. So for my patients who are, like, teenagers and young adults, like, I give them the talk, which is not like anyway, it's like about birth control and stuff like that. And it's pretty good. I mean, sometimes people will be like, wow, I'm so glad this may be, like, the most useful, hour we've ever spent together. So we may try to put that together for y'all. On Twitch, sure. No, I mean, like, but seriously, like, this is important stuff, right? Like, so we'll think about that. We'll see if it may be against TOS, so maybe we can't do it. I don't know. So we'll see. Okay, who are we rating, chat? So what happens when the kid says, no, I don't like school? No. So we don't just let it be. Then we ask them, what don't you like about school? Right? Help me understand, like, what don't you like about school? And then it's like, once we understand, okay, like, here are the problems with school, then, then you'll explore, right? Because that's when you really uncover the problems. Oh, like the reason I don't like school is because I'm getting bullied. And it's like, then you're like, that's big. So, if they say they don't like school, that's actually a really important discovery on your part. Because then, like, no wonder you're fighting an uphill battle at, like, trying to get them to go to school. We're going to raid Minx. Yeah, let's raid someone with one viewer. Who's got one viewer, chat? The Sushi Dragon? What is Sushi Dragon doing? I can't tell. Music. Sushi Dragon? Yeah, what if the answer for why the kid doesn't like school is just something like boring? That's a great... So then you can say, what's boring about it? What are you interested in? When did school become boring is a really important question. So our coaches do a lot of this work with our clients. So not the parents, but the y'all, basically, right? So the 10,000 people that have come through our coaching program, because a lot of y'all are bored by stuff. My job is boring. I feel unmotivated. Then you dig into that stuff. So like, help me understand, what are you excited by? Help me understand when school became boring. What happened when school became boring? And oftentimes what you'll find is like, you'll uncover other things like, oh, it turns out that your kid has ADHD. And so the reason that school is boring is because they literally can't pay attention. And it gets like, they're just sitting there. And everything that they're being taught is like, flying like right through their brain and nothing sticks. And so no wonder school would be boring. So sometimes we also devalue that which we fear we are not good at. So I did this when I was kind of becoming a monk, or trying to become a monk, where I was like, I suck at life, so let me just say that life is not worth it. So I'm going to rise above all this materialistic crap, and I'm going to be unattached from grades and worldly success, because that's for people who are spiritually, bereft of any kind of spirituality. They're so materialistic. And the reason that I get Fs is because I am better than them, right? So like, you devalue things that you're afraid you suck at. And so that's, so like when kids say boring, like, let's try to understand what's really underneath that. Right? And sometimes they'll like, school will be boring. So we see that too, where like the kids are not challenged at school. And so my solution there is like, okay, try to find your kid like an internship somewhere. Like what is exciting to them? Maybe they want to volunteer at like an animal shelter, or maybe they want to like go to space camp, or like, you can do other things as a parent to support them. You can say, hey, I want to help you. What can we do that would be less boring? And the cool thing is, it's not really about finding out the solution. It's just that once they understand as a child that you as a parent are genuinely trying to help them and following their lead about what needs to change in their life, that's when we really see a really strong alliance build. And then even as a parent, like once they know you're in their corner, you can even say like, hey, even though I know it's boring for you, I still think it's really important that you do this. And then the kid is like, okay, fine. It's bizarre. Like they just won't fight you as much. Okay, I don't know what's going on with Sushi Dragon. This seems weird. So, what is this? Dizzy Onion. By the way, anyone playing Lost Ark?
Hey, are you already rating? Can I just quickly?
Yeah.
Hey, so I saw some of you guys in chat said that, like, you wish that your parents could experience something similar. So if you guys want to help us get the word out, that would be really cool, because we've got 108 spots and we're starting November 11th. And our coaches are really excited. So we're hoping that we can get enough parents in the program. So anything y'all can do to help us get the word out, that'd be awesome. I think the command is in Discord here.
What?
Sorry, not Discord, in chat. Oh.
Yeah, so you guys can reverse Uno your parents. So what oftentimes happens is we'll get phone calls from parents and they're like, can I sign up my kid for coaching? And we say, no, you can't. This kid has to want to sign up for coaching. And then the parents are like, screw you. And then we're like, maybe you should sign up for coaching. And then they're like, screw you. I'm not the one with the problem. My kid is the one with the problem. We're like, no, actually, you should sign up. So y'all can reverse Uno them, right? And you can be like, hey, parents, I think you should sign up for this thing.
Yeah, so if you want to reverse Uno them, awesome. But also, like, get in their WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. That'd be really cool. Their Facebook groups, etc.
So the other thing that's really neat about this, sorry, can I keep going?
Yeah, please.
I'm excited.
Please. Okay, good.
Okay,
Great.
The other thing that's really cool about this is our coaches love working with parents.
Yeah.
So we were surprised, like we have like other kinds of coaching opportunities like content creation and things like that. But the coaches themselves are super excited with working with parents. And the coaches are like y'all. They're from like our community, right? So I was a little bit surprised by how eager they are to like help parents like connect with their kids. So it's actually really like fantastic. How old do our kids have to be to qualify for coaching? For parent? Oh, so parent coaching is sort of divided in two ways. I think like if your kid is younger than a teenager, you may get a little bit less out of it. But basically we try to think about two groups. So this is what we call pre-insight and post-insight. Basically, does your kid know they have a problem or not? More practically, it's kind of like the two camps are like under 18, like kids that are living at home, maybe a little bit older, and then over 18 is kind of those are the two groups. And generally speaking, the experiences and struggles and challenges that parents face are quite different. So if you've got a 14-year-old, like that's really different from having a 24-year-old, But I'd say like, under not like 10, because a big part of this, remember, is like communication. So if your kid is not old enough to be able to like really like answer questions or like internalize, like understand what's going on inside them, then it may not be as effective. We actually don't have great data on like kids under 10, for example. So I don't know if it would actually help parents in that situation. It's really geared towards like, because remember, this is a program that was built off of our work with y'all, right? So what we did is like ask ourselves, now that we understand what being a gamer is like, how can we equip parents to deal with us with Twitch chat, basically? Okay, so there seems to be some cool music going on from Chris Taylor, Talayer. So check that out. I'd like to learn how to better communicate with my autistic son. Yeah, so then you can definitely, I don't know how old your son is, but we do have, so this was a big part that we added in this most recent launch. We added a section on neurodiversity where we talk a little bit about autism. Unfortunately, it's been my experience that you cannot, I mean, I guess you could, but autism is such a varied presentation that we can't have like a communication guide for autism, right? Because different people on the autism spectrum, their communication abilities are going to be like wildly different. So that's where, you can absolutely learn the principles, but then you need to adapt those principles or filter them through whatever limitations your child actually has. So like some kids with autism are nonverbal completely, right? So what we teach you is going to like not really work very well. Other kids will be like hyperlogical and may need a lot of concrete stuff. So you can't really ask them like questions about, it's going to be hard for them to answer questions about internal feelings and motivation and stuff like that. You have to really make things like concrete. So there are a lot of like different adaptations, but the tricky thing is that those tend to be very individualized. Yeah, so it's tough. We're working on it. But so we do have some information, but the real answer, and I hate to say this, but as much as I want to say that our program can fix all problems, I hate to say this, but my actual recommendation to parents in the program is they can learn some, but then it's really to take the principles that we teach and filter them through your child's actual communication pattern. And sometimes that involves like collaborating with a clinician, ideally. Okay. Oh yeah. So some people are asking, and I think Danana mentioned that. So sometimes we'll have like both parents show up. And I told this story recently, but sometimes it's funny because like this was hilarious. So I was running a group session with the parents, or I was giving a lecture or something. And in the background, right? So the parents, there's a laptop and then there's a couch and both of the parents are sitting on the couch. And so I'm giving this lecture and I can see them, on the Zoom call. And then in the background, I see like a teenage kid, like a teenage boy, like walk by, and the kid like does a double take. And then he like asks his parents and he's like, "Is that Dr. K?" And then the parents are like, "Do you know who this is?" And then the kid is like, "Do you know who this is?" And then he like got freaked out and he left. And it's like hilarious. Right? So we oftentimes get both parents, and that's totally fine. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite stories about parent coaching. But yeah, right. That's how we know we've made it, is like when the parents have heard of us and the kids have heard of us. But that's really like our point, right? It's like, be a healthy gamer. Don't worry, chat. We've got your back. Because I don't know if you guys caught this, but nowhere did I tell Layla, like, yeah, he's got to stop playing video games. You know, nowhere did I say that. We don't. And so sometimes parents are like, you know, it's really about supporting your kid in achieving their goals and helping them form like healthy gaming habits. Right? Okay, we're going to raid Chris Taylor. Taylor? I don't know how to pronounce it. But he seems to be jamming on guitar, so send him some love. We'll see y'all on Monday. I don't know if we've got an interview or maybe we're going to do Reddit stuff. I'm 32. Should I get my parents in this? It's your choice, man. If you think that they could benefit from it, then maybe. You know, but generally speaking, it's geared towards parents who have kids that they're trying to set like limits around like technology with. Okay. So take care, y'all. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. So we may have a little bit more parent content coming for y'all. I think it's really cool. I really like doing it. And so maybe we'll get parents who are like a little bit less nice at some point too. And then we may have to, really challenge them a little bit more. So take care. We love you guys. Have a good weekend.